We live in a world that constantly pulls us out of alignment, distractions, demands, stressors that seem to rise faster than we can respond. Most people try to think their way through it, fight their way out, or numb themselves just to cope. There is a divine intelligence woven into the very fabric of your biology, a sacred code that your body carries without you ever needing to study or memorize it. It's not written in books. It's etched into your cells, into your lungs, into your heartbeat. And within this sacred design, there exists a breath unlike any other. A breath that, when taken with awareness, resets the chaos, silences the storm, and realigns the soul with the clarity of the present moment. This breath is known in neuroscience as the physiological sigh, yet it is far more than a scientific term. It is the original prayer of the body, the ancient signal that the Creator embedded into your system to return you from fear to focus, from panic to peace. This breath is not random. It is a double inhale through the nose, followed by a long exhale through the mouth. Two short, sharp inhales stacked one upon the other, followed by a deliberate and complete release. It is not poetic. It is mechanical, and it is miraculous. This is the breath your body naturally takes when you cry and begin to calm down. It's the breath pattern that happens automatically in deep sleep when your nervous system is repairing itself. It is built into your architecture not as a backup plan, but as a frontline defense, a moment-to-moment way to reclaim dominion over your internal state. When you engage in this breath, something holy occurs within the nervous system. The tiny air sacs in your lungs, known as alveoli, which collapse under the pressure of stress and shallow breathing, are reinflated. Carbon dioxide, which has been trapped in the bloodstream and fueling anxiety, is released. Your heart rate begins to drop. Your brain, sensing this shift, rewires its perception of threat, and in that moment you gain what so many seek through years of external searching: control, balance, dominion over your vessel. It's not magic, though it feels like it. It's not mystical, though it touches something sacred. It is the original language of your nervous system, and it's always been within your reach. The breath was the first gift given to man, the breath of life, the spark of conscious awareness, and still today, in the chaos of modernity, that same breath holds the power to restore you. The physiological sigh is not just a trick or a tool. It is a reminder that no matter how loud the world gets, no matter how far your thoughts race ahead or spiral downward, there is always a way back to center. And it does not come through technology or through endless information. It comes from within. It comes through the breath. The double inhale, followed by the exhale, is the switch that God embedded in the temple of your body, a neurological covenant ready to be activated the moment you choose to return to it. The breath is not just air moving through the lungs. It is the steering wheel of your nervous system. Every inhale and exhale sends a signal to the brain, telling it whether the environment is safe or threatening, whether to prepare for war or enter into rest. At the core of this communication lies the autonomic nervous system, a divine mechanism split into two sacred forces: the sympathetic, which drives alertness, readiness, and survival, and the parasympathetic, which governs calm, recovery, and healing. These two systems are not enemies. They are designed to work in holy balance. And the breath is the key to that balance. When you breathe shallow and fast, your body interprets this as a sign of danger. The sympathetic nervous system ignites, flooding your bloodstream with adrenaline, raising your heart rate, tightening your muscles, narrowing your focus. This is the fight or flight state, and it is necessary in moments of real threat. But when this state is activated chronically through stress, overthinking, overstimulation, your body becomes trapped in a prison of its own response. Your sleep suffers, your digestion breaks down, your thoughts become hijacked by fear, but the path out is already written into the system. You don't need to buy it, you don't need to download it, you were born with it. Through intentional breathing, especially slow, deep exhales, You activate the parasympathetic branch, the sacred rest and digest system. The long exhale sends a signal of safety upward from the body to the brainstem and radiates into the cortex where focus, decision making, and emotional clarity live. This is not theory, it is measurable in brain scans, in heart rate variability, in pupil dilation, but it is also deeply spiritual. Because what it reveals is that you are not a prisoner to your mental state. You are the architect of it. And the way you breathe is the tool you've been given to draw the blueprint. Inhaling tends to raise alertness, energize the system, and prepare for action. Exhaling, especially when prolonged, slows the heart, grounds the mind, and prepares the body to recover. This rhythmic pattern is not random. It is the fingerprint of creation. It echoes the rise and fall of waves, the cycles of day and night, the pulse of life itself. And when you take control of it, you are aligning with the natural law that governs all living things. You become a co-creator of your inner world. This is why breath is more than a wellness trend. It is the original interface between spirit and structure, between the unseen and the measurable. And the nervous system, often thought to be automatic and beyond control, is in fact listening, waiting for you to engage with it. Through breath, you do not just calm yourself. You command your biology. You do not just feel better. You step into authority. You gain access to the lever that moves the brain and the body into harmony. Carbon dioxide is not the enemy. It is the signal. It is the messenger that tells the brain what the body needs. For years, people have believed that oxygen is all that matters, that more oxygen equals more energy, more calm, more clarity. But that is only half the truth. In the sacred design of the body, carbon dioxide plays a role just as vital, just as divine. It is not waste, it is wisdom. It determines how tightly or how freely your blood vessels open. It influences whether your brain receives nourishment or is starved of its fuel. And it shapes your inner state more than most people will ever realize. When you are stressed, your breath becomes shallow and rapid. You blow off too much carbon dioxide. And when that level drops too low, blood vessels constrict, including those that lead to the brain. Less blood flow, less oxygen delivery, not more, less the result light, headedness, anxiety, difficulty thinking clearly. A racing heart, a flood of confusion, and this is where the misinterpretation begins. You think something is wrong with your life, your purpose, your path. But sometimes it's simply that your brain is suffocating from a lack of balance. You are not broken. You are biologically misfiring because you've lost command of a sacred rhythm. But here lies the miracle. By adjusting your breath, you can restore that balance. Slow, deliberate inhales through the nose, holding the breath briefly at the top, and extending the exhale allow carbon dioxide to rise to its optimal level. When that happens, the blood vessels relax, the brain receives what it needs, the fog begins to lift. The heart begins to slow, focus returns, a sense of internal order begins to rise, not because your circumstances changed, but because your internal chemistry did. You altered your state not through force, but through breath, and in doing so, you stepped into mastery. This is the power that breath grants us. It is not just about bringing oxygen in. It is about managing the ratio between oxygen and carbon dioxide. That ratio determines the state of your brain. It affects your ability to think, to remain present, to choose wisely. And it is available to you in every moment. You are not at the mercy of racing thoughts or emotional spirals. You are not destined to be dragged around by the chaos of the mind. You have a tool given by design that allows you to pause, regulate, and return to clarity. When you retain carbon dioxide within its healthy range, you increase your brain's access to oxygen. When you exhale slowly, you tell the system that it is safe. You give permission for the higher brain centers, those responsible for vision, logic, decision, and empathy, to take over. This is not philosophy. This is divine physiology. A breathing pattern aligned with the sacred intelligence of the body can turn the same moment from torment to triumph. The difference is not in your external reality, but in how your internal chemistry communicates with your brain. There are moments in life when the external world remains the same, yet everything within you shifts, the body still, the environment unchanged, but suddenly your mind is clear, your emotions steady, your vision sharp. This is not a miracle from without, it is a transformation from within, and one of the fastest ways to access that shift is through deliberate breathing. Not just to relax, not just to feel better, but to initiate a rapid and measurable change in your brainwave activity. With a single pattern of breath, you can move from a chaotic, distracted, anxious state into one of calm focus, heightened perception, and internal control. This is not speculation. It is mapped in the electrical rhythms of the brain. Your brain operates on frequencies, electrical oscillations, that determine whether you are alert, drowsy, asleep, or in a peak performance state. These frequencies are not static. They are fluid, changing moment to moment based on what you do, what you feel, and how you breathe. Rapid, shallow breathing tends to amplify high frequency beta waves, useful for urgency, but dangerous when sustained too long. It feeds anxiety, sharpens the sense of threat, narrows vision. But the moment you begin to breathe slowly and rhythmically, especially through the nose, and with extended exhales, your brain begins to shift toward alpha and theta states. These are the frequencies of calm alertness, of creativity, of strategic thinking and emotional access. The power of breath is that it is the remote control for this shift. While you cannot directly will your brainwaves to change, you can change your breath, and the breath will command the nervous system, and the nervous system will command the brain. It is a chain of divine influence, flowing from the body to the mind, from the physiological to the psychological. And you are not a spectator, you are the conductor. The breath is your baton. The tempo you choose determines the frequency your mind will follow. This shift is not subtle. In clinical settings, it is measurable in EEG scans, in heart, brain coherence data, in real-time metrics. But it is also felt deeply when the brain enters alpha or theta, the inner noise quiets, thoughts do not vanish, but they lose their grip. Emotions become signals, not masters. The ability to choose emerges. This is what so many seek through stimulants, through distractions, through external validation, but it is already built into your design. You were never meant to live in a constant state of mental static. You were designed to have access to stillness, to insight, to deep, sustained attention. And the door to that access swings open through the breath. It is not about doing more. It is about shifting state. One breath, one pattern, held with intention and repeated with discipline, can take you from reaction to awareness. This is not simply calming down. It is stepping into a higher state of consciousness. You are not escaping reality. You are entering it fully, equipped and aligned. Because the breath, when used correctly, does not sedate. It activates, it awakens what lies dormant and recalibrates the rhythms of the mind. There is a war being fought inside the modern mind, not with swords, but with signals. A war between overstimulation and clarity, between fear and presence, between constant noise and the still, commanding voice of purpose. And for most, the battlefield is the nervous system. Sleepless nights, racing thoughts, sudden spikes of panic, mental fatigue, so thick it feels like chains around the brain. But there is a weapon more powerful than medication, more immediate than therapy, and more accessible than any external tool. It is the breath. The breath, when used with precision, becomes a non-pharmaceutical key to reclaiming calm, sharpening clarity, and unlocking the mental freedom we were always meant to walk in. When anxiety rises, it feels like an ambush, an invisible flood of tension, tightness in the chest, restlessness in the limbs, chaos in the mind. But what if the solution was not to escape it, not to drown it out, but to meet it with authority? That authority begins in the control of the breath. Not shallow breathing, not slow for the sake of slow breathing, but deliberate, structured breathwork that shifts the very foundation of your biology. Because anxiety is not simply a mental phenomenon, it is a physiological cascade. It begins in the body. And if it begins there, it can be ended there. The breath is the first and fastest way to intercept that cascade. Through protocols like the physiological sigh or cyclic sighing, you engage the vagus nerve, a sacred line of communication between the heart, lungs, gut, and brain. This nerve does not speak in language. It speaks in breath. And when you breathe with long exhales, when you engage in cycles of controlled rhythm, the vagus nerve sends a signal upward, all is well. And in response, the brain dials down the stress response, lowers cortisol, quiets the amygdala, opens the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, insight, and executive control. In seconds, not hours, you begin to feel the change, not because your life shifted, but because your state did. You took dominion, you flipped the internal switch, you remembered who you are. This is the divine genius of the breath. It does not require belief. It requires action. It is not reactive. It is proactive. It allows you to train your nervous system daily, like a spiritual discipline, like a neurological altar where you meet the chaos and speak order over it. And the more you practice, the more automatic it becomes. What once took minutes will take seconds. What once overwhelmed you will become manageable, not because you grew numb, but because you grew strong. The breath becomes your shield, your sword, your strategy, and clarity, true clarity, returns when the fog of stress lifts. Your thoughts align, your energy recalibrates, you stop reacting and start responding. You become less fragile, more focused. Not from motivational mantras, but from mastering the most primal rhythm you possess. The breath doesn't just soothe, it sharpens. It doesn't just pacify, it empowers. You begin to see with precision, speak with purpose, act with alignment. Because anxiety is no longer the master, you are, and you've reclaimed that authority one breath at a time. The nervous system is not a fixed machine. It is a living, breathing instrument of adaptation. It learns. It remembers, it rewires, but like any instrument, it only plays in tune when it is trained. Without intentional practice, the nervous system defaults to survival mode, overreacting, overstimulating, overstressing. It becomes a system ruled by the past, chained to old patterns, triggered by noise, driven by fear. But there is a divine design hidden in plain sight. Breathwork is not just a tool for emergency relief. It is the daily training ground for the nervous system. It is how you build resilience in the unseen so you can stand strong in the storm. Every time you breathe with intention, you are rewriting the story your body tells your brain. You are creating neural pathways that say, I am in control. You are rehearsing calm under pressure, building a reflex of strength instead of surrender. And that repetition is what transforms reaction into mastery. You do not need hours of meditation or complete silence. You need consistency. You need structure. You need discipline. 5 minutes of breath work each day becomes a sacred appointment with your nervous system. A meeting where you teach it how to remain unshaken in a shaking world. The breath is the only system in the body that is both automatic and under your control. This is not a coincidence. It is an invitation to partner with your biology instead of being a slave to it. When you breathe deeply, rhythmically, and with purpose, you teach your brain that not every elevated heart rate is an emergency, not every tension is trauma, not every challenge is threat. You reshape your baseline. You retrain your resting state. You shift from fragile to fortified, from reactive to responsive, from anxious to anchored. This is the neuroscience of spiritual discipline, not theory, practice, not escape. Engagement. You meet stress with strategy. You meet fear with breath, and over time, your body begins to trust you. Your nervous system begins to listen to you. The chaos may still knock on the door, but it no longer gets to come inside uninvited, because you have rehearsed calm. You have trained clarity, you have built a foundation that holds even when everything around you shakes. Daily breath work is not just a wellness practice, it is warfare, it is the sharpening of the sword, it is the renewal of the temple, and every session is a declaration that you are not at the mercy of your emotions. You are not a victim of your biology, you are the steward of it. The breath becomes your daily liturgy, sacred, structured, intentional. You breathe not just to survive, but to rise. You breathe to remember who you are, to discipline the body, align the mind, and ignite the spirit. The nervous system was never meant to rule you. It was meant to serve you, and through breath, you reclaim that dominion.